Hi everyone, my name's Daryl. So today we're going to sanitize our A-liner water system. Most RV experts recommend that you sanitize at least 2 times a year. I would recommend that you sanitize at least at the beginning or the end of the camping season, depending on whether or not you winterize, and then probably at least one more time in the middle of the camping season. If you take long breaks between your camping trips, and shame on you, then you might want to consider sanitizing also between those long camping trips. So at a real high level, all we're really doing is adding Clorox Bleach to kill any sort of microbes that are in their system, and then letting it sit for 8 to 12 hours, and then flushing that system out. So you should know that this is actually the first time that I sanitized our A-liner water system. We just got our A-liner a couple of months ago, and we're just getting started to get ready for the spring camping season, so I figured now would be a good time to do it. I did watch a bunch of videos, one especially from Going Nowhere Fast, John, who does a lot of A-liner content, but his video on sanitizing his A-liner was on an older model, and it was about 4 years old, and so I figured it was time to update the content just a bit. So I am assuming that your A-liner water system is already drained. Basically, at the end of each camping trip, you really should be draining the water system so you don't have any kind of water that's sitting in the tanks. So that's the assumption, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we've got our handy dandy Clorox bleach, and we're gonna basically dilute some of this bleach into this water. The formula is for every 50 gallons, you're gonna have 1 cup of bleach. Our A-liner water tanks, freshwater tanks, are 11 gallons, and then we have a 6-gallon hot water tank. And so that adds up to 17 gallons. So it's a little more than a quarter of 50 gallons. A quarter of 50 gallons is 12 and a half, and we're at 17. So we want to use a little more than a quarter cup. And so I've got a quarter cup measuring device here. And so I'm going to put a quarter cup into my existing water. And then I'm going to add just a little bit more, and then we're going to call that good. So all right, so now we're just gonna kind of slosh this around a little bit, and then we're gonna add it to our water tank. Now I have pre-filled my water tank. I probably filled that up about halfway or so. So it dilutes it even a little bit more. But I'm gonna go ahead and now add this to our water tank. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and add this to our water tank. All right, so I got the bleach water in the tank. So now what we're gonna do is top off the tank with a hose, and then we're gonna go to the next step. All right, so now I'm topping the water off, and I'm gonna basically let it run until it gets filled up. Okay, it's full. All right, I'm gonna go cap it off, and then we're gonna go to the next step. Okay, so for our next part of the process, we need to pressurize our water system, and we do that by turning on the water pump. Before I do that though, let me talk about something that was a little confusing to me. So when I looked at a number of RV videos on sanitizing the water system, they said you really shouldn't put bleach water into the hot water tank. But I looked at John's video, and even though he has a bypass switch, he actually still had the bleach water going to the hot water tank. So, and I actually looked at the manual for our hot water tank, and they suggest putting bleach water in the tank to get rid of some of the sulfur smells that come from the hot water tank and the heat. So it's not clear to me. For sure, if you're going to winterize your A-liner water system, so if it gets really cold and you store it outside, you're going to want to put RV antifreeze into your water system to keep those lines from freezing up. And if you do so, you're definitely not going to want that RV antifreeze going into your hot water heater. So I didn't know whether or not my A-liner, I've got a 2022 A-liner Classic. I didn't know if my water system actually had a bypass valve, and it does. And so I'm assuming any newer A-liner will have the bypass valve. So let me show that to you real quick. So you can see, here's my hot water tank. And so basically this line right here is basically coming into the water heater. And this comes in either from the water pump or from the inlet for the city water. And so if you simply divert this and turn it towards that other line, okay, then no water is going to go into the water tank. Instead, it's going to be diverted and it's going to go through here as if it was hot water. So because of the fact that this is a used unit that I have, I'm going to go ahead and just get that bleach water into the hot water tank just to kind of disinfect it. I don't know if any sort of water was standing in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But just so you know, if you don't want, if you use city water and if you don't want that water going into your hot water tank, and if you have a newer unit with that bypass valve on it, you can just close it and then water won't go into that water tank. But under normal circumstances, when you turn on the water pump, the first thing that it's going to do is start pumping water into that hot water tank. And so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, is go ahead and turn that on, the water pump. And so you'll hear it starting to pump water. And initially it's going to go into the hot water tank, so it's going to fill that, and that is 6 gallons. And then after it's filled that, then it's going to pressurize the system, and then we can start basically getting our bleach water to all the lines and making sure that bleach water is in the entire system. So we'll go ahead and let that happen, and then I'll see you in a sec. All right, so now that our pump has run and filled the hot water tank and pressurized the system, now we need to run the water. And I'm going to start with the cold side first. And basically what I'm going to do is run the water until I can really clearly smell the bleach. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so that's good. Now what I'm going to do is go to the hot side and run it again until I can smell bleach. Okay, so we're good with that. Now what I'm going to do is go to the outside shower, and I'm going to do basically the same thing. All right, so now I'm going to do both the hot and the cold water side on the outside shower. So I'm going to start off with cold. Actually, the lines are switched on mine, so even though it says cold, it's actually doing hot. But here we go. So once again, I'm going to let this run, and it's basically priming these lines here, and I want it to run until I can smell chlorine. Oh yeah, that's good chlorine smell there. That's good. I'm sorry, bleach, but bleach and chlorine are basically the same thing. And now run the other side. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, so now that I've gotten basically bleach into all the lines and everything's pressurized, what I want to do now is, the tank isn't full, and so I want to add more water to the tank. And so I will do that, and I'll be back again in just a second. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and top off the water tank, because we did put 6 gallons of water into the hot water tank, as well as clearing the other lines and getting chlorine into the lines. So I'm going to go ahead and fill it up. So another thing that you might want to do, especially if you use city water, is to disinfect your hose, as well as the inlet for your city water connection. And so I've got some already pre-diluted bleach in here, and I'm going to put it in my hose. Now do make sure you have a water pressure regulator connected to your hose between the city water connection and your A-liner. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the valve up, and now I don't think there's that very long of a connection, but at least you've got some chlorine or some bleach that is now in the hose, as well as in the inlet for the city water connection. Basically what I want to do now is just drive around for maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so, and you just want to get the water to slosh around in both of those tanks pretty good. I'm not sure exactly how long you're supposed to drive, but probably 10-15 minutes would be good. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to store the camper overnight. and we're gonna let it sit for 8 to 12 hours, and then we're gonna drain it. So I'm gonna take off and drive a little bit, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Hi everyone, I'm back. So the water's been sitting in the tanks for about 14 hours or so now it's time to drain it. I'm actually gonna open up both the hot and cold water on the shower side, as well as opening up the plugs underneath the trailer and draining the tanks, and then also running the water inside the trailer on the sink. So I'm not sure how long it will take to drain, but basically I'm gonna fill it up after I've drained it. I'm gonna fill it up once, drain it, fill it up again, and drain it, and then I should be done. And most of that bleach water should be out of the system because you don't really want to taste all that bleach. And so let me get started. Let's see how long this takes. Sky on, sky on. Yeah, so it only took about 5 minutes to drain. So basically with everything open, it really drained fast. And so now I'm gonna close everything up and basically fill it up and drain it again. Hey everyone, Daryl here. So this is just a quick update actually to this video. I found out after I shot the video that just by opening up the drain valve under the water heater tank doesn't actually fully empty the tank. Actually, pretty much all the water stays in there and come out. So you really have 3 options in draining the hot water tank. And so let me show you those. All right, so for the first option, you can have the drain valve open. And this here is the pressure release valve. So I have the hot water panel open. And if I just pull on this valve, you'll hear some hissing a little bit. And that relieves the pressure a little bit. And then the water will actually drain underneath the hot water heater. So that's your first option. You basically just have to hold this for probably about 7 or 8 minutes or so to empty the water tank. So that's the first option. The second option is actually removing this anode rod. So this is really helpful if you want to kind of empty your tank, but also clean out the tank. So you can remove the anode rod, and you should be doing that probably once a year anyway. So remove the anode rod, let the water tank empty, and then replace it with a brand new anode rod, putting in some tape on top of the anode rod, and before that, kind of cleaning out the water tank. So the third option, the one that I'm likely to do, and it's the easiest one, is to simply open that drain valve and then make sure all the faucets are closed, and then simply run the water pump. So you've got pressure. That's what the water pump does, is it puts pressure into the piping, and with the water pump on, it just automatically drains that valve. And so that's really the best way of doing it. One of my A-liner buddies, Brian Hovender, he moderators another group, and he's the one that gave me that tip. And so that's really awesome. A-liner does recommend that if you use the hot water tank, that you really should empty it at the end of every camping trip. And so that's what I'm likely to do. All right, so now with the regular scheduling programming to continue the water sanitization, and enjoy the rest of the video. All right, so this is my first refill. Basically, I'm just filling it up and gonna drain the system. Now make sure if you didn't divert the water, the bleach water from your hot water tank, that you turn on that pump and get that clean water into your hot water tank and empty that a couple of times as well, just to get that bleach out of that hot water tank. Okay, this only took about 5 minutes or so to fill up, so I'm gonna turn on the pump and get some of that fresh water into the hot water tank. All right, so I successfully filled up the water tank and ran the pump, got it into the water heater. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and drain, but I'm gonna do it just from the outside shower in the inside sink instead of opening up the drain plugs, and we'll see how long that takes. Yeah, so this is taking quite a bit longer. So I'm gonna go ahead and just open up those drain plugs. I don't have all day. So that's pretty much it in regards to sanitizing your water system. So now you've got a fresh, clean water tank ready for spring camping. If you got some value from this video, please like it, and also consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. And I hope to see you again in the next one very soon.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.